Cheers and welcome to Irondale Brewing. Today we're going to talk about the beer I brewed on Big Brew Day back in May, early May, May 3rd, so about a month ago. And I don't have a lot of Brew Day footage, so either I'm sorry or you're welcome, depending on how into Brew Day footage you are, because BrewTubers, brewtubers.com, check it out. Had a lot of new members lately. Great club, great discussions going on in the Discord. Great group of folks who are all into homebrewing. Anyway, check them out. But we were on Zoom that day, and I didn't get a lot of Brew Day footage because I was talking to the BrewTubers instead of filming much. So, which that's okay to do once in a while. But this will be grained to glass. And the beer I brewed for Big Brew Day, I didn't do one of the official recipes. I can't remember if on Big Brew Day there's only one, or if they have a couple to choose from. I did a beer I'd been meaning to do for a while, and the timing was just such that it seemed like a good opportunity to do it, and it is what I am calling a Kvölsch, which is a Kölsch recipe that I fermented with Kveik Lutra. And I know if you know what a Kölsch is and you know what makes a Kölsch, you're saying it's not a Kölsch anymore. Totally get it. This was it seemed like a good opportunity for me to take a pretty clean base recipe. And, you know, I've had a lot of Kölsches, so I kind of know what Kölsches are about, and use Kveik Lutra, which I've never used before. So then I can really get a sense of, okay, this is what Kveik does in a beer style I know pretty well. If that makes any sort of logical sense, it did to me. So obviously, if you haven't had a Kölsch, it's a really great summer beer. It is very easy drinking. It is a hybrid beer of sorts because it's fermented with a top fermenting yeast. But it is then lagered, so you end up with a interesting hybrid style. Typically with a Kölsch, you'll get a little bit of fruitiness from the yeast, not a lot, maybe just a little bit of maltiness. But for me anyway, a Kölsch is just kind of a soft on the palate, easy drinking beer that finishes crisp but not super dry. And like I said, a little bit of fruitiness from the yeast, but nothing. It's just a well-balanced, very light colored, easy drinking beer, and nothing really smacked you in the face. So again, I thought that would be a good opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to take this beer that's supposed to be what I just described and throw Lutra at it and see what happens. So for my recipe, just to get into that a little bit, I used 92.2% Pilsner, 5.8% Vienna, and 2% Carapils. And then Hallertau Mittelfrüh for the hops. I did about 24 IBU total is all. And then through Kveik Lutra at it, I used the dry Omega Kveik Lutra. I'll talk a little bit more about the fermentation probably after, but it ripped through it in, I think, 2 days. In fact, why don't I just do that now, and then we can just focus on the tasting in the second section. Let me switch to my batches here. Apologies while I look at my phone more. So I'll put the chart up on the screen too, but the primary fermentation was basically done after about 2 days. And I'll have video of that because it was just the amount of churn you could see in the fermenter was just insane. I fermented. I didn't ferment. The other thing I wanted to do is keep the Lutra kind of on the lower side of its temperature range. I fermented at about 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Because I didn't want to push the temperature to see how far you can take it, because it can go up to 90, I think, or something crazy like that. I'll put that on the screen too, because I'm probably forgetting. It really ripped through things. It finished, my original gravity was 1048, it looks like, and it finished at 1006. So it got probably a little bit too dry for a Kölsch. But again, I didn't think I was going to get a Kölsch out of this. I was just kind of curious what I would get out of it. I think that's about it for an intro. But we will I'll show the little bit of Brew Day footage I have, and we'll do a tasting and a comparison with a real Kölsch that I have to get locally here at the end. It is Big Brew Day today, and I'm getting up to temp. It's dropping. Anyway, I'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to mash today. I'm doing a Kvölsch, which is my goofy name for a Kölsch that I'm going to ferment with Kveik, which I know doesn't make it a Kölsch anymore, but I wanted to see what Kveik did on pretty plain beer, and that seemed like a decent way to do it. So, I'm going to fix my temperature issue here. Basically, I had it go up to mash temp and then move on to the next step where you're just holding the mash temp, but don't start the timer until you get all mashed in, blah, blah, blah. And I should have not dropped the power level quite yet, but we'll get that resolved and we'll get mashed in. Halfway through the mash on the Kölsch, and the temperatures have been pretty stable. It kind of settled into 148 instead of the 149 I was going for, but I'll take it. I also am trying this time something a little bit different. I am not stirring during the mash. I tended to, before I'd stir, maybe 15 minutes or so. You can see down in there. No, you can see the lid. Yeah, not really, didn't plan that well. This one I'm just going to let ride and see what happens. I have read that if you stir too much during, it can affect the clarity, but we'll see. It's fun to experiment either way. Coming up to a boil on our Kvölsch. I screwed up my profile and it was sitting at 30% power to try to get it to a boil, so note to self, check your profiles, but yeah, it's looking good so far. I did not stir while I was mashing, so I'll be curious if that affects the clarity. To me, it looked less clear than I would have expected, than I was used to seeing out of these types of beers when I made them before, but good experiment. I like trying new stuff every time, just see what happens. I did not get my act together to get my steam condenser lid going for this batch. So we got steam, my fan, the old way of doing it. This better be the last time. I need to commit to doing that for next time. It's not too bad though. It seems to be working well. Last batch when I had, like a whirlpool and a bunch of other stuff going on, it get pretty darn steamy, and that's kind of what prompted me to buy the steam condenser lid. But today it's pretty much going right out the window, so it shouldn't be too bad. Smelling great. Everything's going smoothly. And at this point I got distracted and thought I was doing video of getting the beer into the fermenter, but it was actually just a picture. So there you have it. And 24 hours later, it is 67% done. Got quite a bit of pressure in there. I'm gonna let that go. I may reduce it a little bit, but in fact, let's do that now. I do want to do this under pressure just for fun, basically. But it is going crazy. You can see the churning there pretty clearly. That is just, like I said, maybe those of you who've used Kveik before are probably like, yeah, that's what it does, but don't have any first-hand experience with it. So this is fun, and I hope the beer comes out well. I have high hopes. All right, so here we have the Kvölsch. I'm gonna wipe some condensation off the glass. So as you can see, very bright and clear. One of the lighter beers I've probably ever made. I think the SRM, at least on Brew Father, came out to about 3. Nice white head on the top there. Not super tight bubbles. That could be a little bit better, but let's talk about the aroma. So the interesting thing is with the Hallertau Mittelfrüh hops, what I would expect to get out of Kölsch, and we're going to compare it to this one here in a minute, would be maybe just a hint of breadiness, but mostly, kind of light, floral, woodsy kind of aroma from the Hallertau Mittelfrüh hops. What I get off of this is mostly lemon, and the only place that could be coming from is the Lutra yeast. At least I don't, to me, I don't think that would be coming from the hops at all, at least not characteristically. They wouldn't have citrus going on really. But that's the main aroma I get off it. Not unpleasant. It's just kind of like, that's the first, maybe clue this is not a traditional Kölsch. But let's check out the mouthfeel of this thing. So it's nice, and I'd say it's medium light on the body, which is, good. You don't want the Kölsch typically wouldn't be very heavy on the mouthfeel. I wouldn't call it soft. It's definitely much more crisp than Kölsches I've had. I have not had this one, so it'll be interesting to compare. But, again, not unpleasant. It's a very easy drinking beer. And flavor-wise, I mostly get lemon, which, again, I think must just be coming from the Kveik Lutra, because that would not be, coming from the hops that I used in this thing. But yeah, it's not a bad beer. I'm glad I tried it out. It's really easy drinking. I've had a few of these before today, and it's, it's grown on me as it sat in the keg for a couple of weeks, kind of after I first tried it. It's not a Kölsch, but it was fun to try, and it was really amazing to see what that Kveik Lutra yeast does. Yeah, I mean, it's of the Kveik strains and fermenting at the temperature I did, which is kind of on the lower end of the recommended temperatures for that strain. It's pretty clean, but again, in a really light recipe like this Kvölsch, like the Kölsch recipe that I turned into a Kvölsch, you get more of the yeast character than you might in a bigger beer. So anyway, that's the Kvölsch. Let's see what this Kölsch does. This is from Brew, which is a brewery out of Cleellum, Washington, independent brewery out of Cleellum. I've not had their Kölsch. I've had several of their other beers that are, and particularly one of their winter beers. That is just fantastic, and they win a lot of awards. So we'll see how they do on the Kölsch. I will say that probably the best Kölsch that I've had in recent memory is from Prost Brewing in Colorado. Let's see what their Kölsch is like. All right. That is a lovely golden color. Look at that. Let's get some of those. Some of the clingy bubbles off of the side of the glass. Sorry. It's clean, but there's some clingy. All right, there we go. It's not quite as clear as mine, I don't think, but and it's a little bit darker and a little bit more golden. Mine is, or this is more straw color. Mine is more really, really light yellow. I like the color of theirs better. But anyway, let's, it's a nice whitehead. They got tighter bubbles on theirs, which I like. Aroma is very different. What I get off of this one is kind of light breadiness and just a little bit of floral from whatever hops they use. I assume they don't say anything about this being any. This says an award-winning German-style golden ale. They do not talk about the hops. They do say it's not hoppy, crisp and refreshing, not hoppy. But yeah, just it's a little bit of bready, a little bit of yeasty, and a little bit of floral from the hops. Yeah, much softer mouthfeel on this one. It is just it's not quite creamy, but it's not super dry and crisp like this one, and it doesn't finish nearly as dry as this one does. Which again this one got down to 10.06. That's pretty dry. Makes great easy summer crusher. This one is, I'd say equally easy to drink, but a very different mouthfeel. Finish is not nearly as dry, but dry enough that it doesn't stick around. And flavor-wise, yeah, flavor-wise, this one is just, I think they really nailed, this is a really excellent Kölsch. I think they really nailed that balance. Is just a little bit fruity from the yeast on the flavor, and not, it's easy drinking, but not so crisp that it's, that I'd call it dry. And it's just got a nice, soft, slightly bready, very slightly fruity, flavor to it. So obviously real Kölsch I would recommend over this one, but it was fun to try and see what Lutra does in a pretty light recipe fermented at a pretty nominal for Lutra temperature. I would use the Lutra again. I think it's a pretty clean yeast. I think in a beer this light, it does come out the prominence of that lemon and citrusy character that I don't think can be coming from anywhere else. Probably if you were using it for something that was more hoppy, more aggressively hoppy, pale ale, IPA, something like that, I would think it could work pretty well in that mix. I think in this case it made for a nice kind of lemony, easy drinking summer beer, but in no way is it a Kölsch. But that's kind of what I wanted to get out of this experiment, just to get a real sense of how Lutra behaves. And even at that temperature of 72, it ripped through things in 2 days very aggressively. But I would say there's no off flavors from the yeast, and I didn't push things in a direction where you're really pushing the yeast to its limits at all. So that's a good thing to know if you just want a quick, relatively clean, quick fermenting yeast. I would recommend Lutra based on my first use of it. But as a Kölsch, this beer is much better. It is a little bit cloudy. I don't think that's supposedly characteristic of the Kölsch style, but I'm not mad at it. It's a very good beer. So anyway, I think I'll just leave it there for today. That's my take on a Kölsch with Lutra Kveik. Hope you learned a little bit something. I know I did. And next video I have coming out will probably be I don't know what. Next video I have coming out will probably be the brew day of the BrewTubers experiment beer, actually. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a future video. Until then, I will probably just go finish this one since I've had a fair number of these. Not a bad beer, but I'm preferring this one at the moment. So until next time, cheers.